Hello, everyone. This is ModX Network Voices. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm joined by my partner, Ivan Rupnik. Ivan, would you like to say hello?
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everybody.
And we're really grateful to have a guest speaker with us today. This is Professor Matsumura, Shuichi Matsumura. He is at the University of Tokyo. He's an architecture professor and works in the Graduate School of Engineering. Ivan and I affectionately refer to Professor Matsumura as the father of offsite construction in Japan currently. He is a prodigy and had an advisor who was Professor Ono, who was instrumental in the early Sekisui Heim system. And since that time, Professor Matsumura has also advised many, many students over the years and helped a lot of companies with their needs, and is really one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry, in the offsite and modular industry in Japan. Welcome, Professor Matsumura. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for your very kind introduction on me. I'm now in Tokyo, but the back picture is from Kyoto. It's a mixture of contemporary person and traditional garden
Nice.
in Japan. Okay, I will answer to your questions about the Japanese house building industry and the market today.
Great.
That's wonderful.
Great.
And go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, so we were, anyway, so it's so nice to join Professor Matsumura today and everyone. And we've been fortunate that Professor Matsumura has hosted us in Japan. So we're doing the next best thing, which is a virtual discussion for today. And we're going to be starting, we've prepared a series of questions in preparation for this discussion. And so for the first question with Professor Matsumura, we're going to start with a discussion about market penetration in Japan. So Japan has a very impressive offsite modular market penetration of as much as 15% or higher. And we really wanted to, you've spoken about in length to us about this, but can you tell us a little bit about why, what led to that large market penetration of offsite construction and modular construction in Japan?
Yes, thank you. And now I will show you some pictures or typical data concerning your questions. The first question of you is about the growth of the offsite construction in Japan. That happened especially in around 1970. And of course, you mentioned before to me your knowledge about how to say the setup or the increasing possibility of the industry after the Korean War in around 50, and also some power or the big influence from the governmental policies about the industry and the housing in 1960s, including not only Ministry of International Trade and Industry, but also, of course, Ministry of Construction. At that time, they wanted the industry modernized or industrialized. And also they expected the house building industry at that time in around 1960. That's not the industry. It's just how to say very conventional everyday business. But at that time, the government would like to make this field as one of the key industry for the growth of Japanese economy in around 70. And here you can see actually the condition of the market was very, very good for the growth of offsite construction during 1960s and in the first half of 1970s. Here you can see the very small, but in 1963 and in 1973, we can compare the 2 years in tenure, 1963 and 1973. And the area of this rectangular represents the size of the market for house building. So as you can see here, only in 10 years, the size of the market for house building becomes not 3 times as large as, but a little bit less than 3 times as large as the market in 1963. So very rapid growth allowed many newcomers to the market. Of course, in 1963, as I mentioned before, the everyday life business, it means almost 90% building was wooden, conventional wooden, and also the built by the management by carpenters is a very, how to say, traditional and conventional skilled workers. And here in 1973, of course, you can see the 2 times as large as this carpenter's field. So the growth of the market of 4 carpenters also we found at that time. But the rest of this rectangular, you can see here, this shows the prefabricated housing manufacturers and suppliers and manufacturers is one of a big newcomer. So you cannot find any, how to say, the footprint of prefabricated houses here in 1963. It is just the beginning. And in 10 years, you can find about 8% of the market was already covered by new prefabricated housing suppliers and manufacturers. Then most of them are from other industry, like Sekisui Chemical is a chemical industry, or some Nippon Steel from steel manufacturing companies, and also Toyota or Panasonic and so on, so on. Such kind of newcomers from other industries to this very growing, everyday growing market. That was incredibly, how to say, increasing market at the time. That was the, I think, the first, how to say, the very important condition for the offsite, the take-off of the offsite construction industry in Japan.
Great.
Yeah. Our second question, Professor Matsumura, is what are some of the key obstacles and challenges along the way in growing market share? What have been some of the challenges?
Yes, the first one is I will show you one, and big one here. Yeah, this is a picture took in around 1980s, and this company, Sexy House, wanted to show how they made a house for a specialized customer. It means a customer housing or order-made house with industrialized component. It is the one obstacle. I remember the question again. The one typical obstacle is this customer's attitude. The Japanese customer, especially in case of single family house, they would like to order a kind of order-made house. It is only for me. That was only for them, and so on, so on. So this shows they put the name of the clients here. It is just a virtual, but Mr. Hoshida is the name, and Hoshida, the story of the family and the remembrance and so on, so on. And they did this floor layout, and they will make up the space with those components. And those components must be produced according to each order. So I mean, the obstacle is against the industrialization or mass production because they need to follow the customer's preference of order-made house, how to manage the mass production and custom-made is one very difficult issue to be solved before their own growing in the market. That's one thing. And the second big, how to say, obstacle was the Building Standards Act is how this building regulation. And not only Japan, but also in other many countries, you can see the building standards only allow the, how to say, the conventional or already existing building methods.
Mm-hmm.
So if a new building method is coming, some special permission system should be introduced to the Building Standards Act. So before the prefabricated housing appearance in around 1960s, no such kind of permission, how to say, system was established. But after that, gradually, the government introduced a special permission system. But it needed very heavy investment for the technical issue. For example, the structural experiment needed. But compared to that, in case of conventional wooden housing, no need, no investment. They can do everyday business without any investment for the technology. But in case of prefabricated or offsite construction industry, they need to invest much to such kind of the special permission and the experiments and how to say calculation analysis for the permission itself. That's my answers to the second question.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and it's very helpful to understand that process, and it sort of leads to our third question, because we saw that while there's a lot of variety in the approach to prefabricated systems, and you have a number of articles on that topic as well, on 1D parts, 2D panelized, as well as 3D volumetric or unit system, as it's called. There's a number of commonalities to what is actually a very heterogeneous, very diverse offering on the market. So what, in your opinion, what are some of the key common factors now that the market's matured, that these companies have developed over 30 or 40 years? What are some of the key common factors that in Japanese offsite industry that all the companies share?
Yes, okay. Then next, how to say, picture. At first, the concerning your question is not direct answer at first, but I had better explain about the conventional wooden housing market nowadays, because still now the market share of conventional wooden houses by local builders and carpenters about 2/3. So only 20% is covered by large offsite manufacturers. Of course, the number of such big companies is very limited, only 10 or 11 or 12. And compared with that, the number of conventional wooden builders and carpenters more than 10,000 all over Japan. Very, very small business. But in around 1990, the very new CAD/CAM machine, what we call Plecat system, is it can do all the processing work which used to be the work of carpenters. Instead of that, the one automatic machine can do every processing without any, how to say, marking, any, how to say, handmade and so on, so on. It's automatic. And nowadays, about 600 or 700 lumberers all over Japan had such kind of machines. They have the factories for such kind of conventional wooden housing. The biggest one now, the biggest factory of this Plecat system is they are producing maybe more than 10,000 housing units per year. So it is, how to say, collecting all the small business, but they are doing a big factory and big investment. It is one phenomenon nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, such kind of modular system 3D, as you mentioned, that Plecat system is almost 1D or something, 2D. But in case of this modular system 3D, it is the picture of Sexy Chemical company. The name of the product is Sexy Heim, and it is the largest company which dealing with modular system in single family housing market in Japan. And the picture itself was took in around 1980s. So it is like, how to say, automobile industry floor line system, like Ford Model T or something like that. And nowadays, of course, 30 or 40 years later, after this picture, but the basic production line, the concept of them is almost the same. And they are themselves, the Plecat system is collecting small business and to be a big production. But in case of this kind of prefabricated, large prefabricated housing manufacturers, they are doing their own house sales business all over Japan, and they collect directly the customers. Like this shows the full-size model house exhibition parks can be found all over Japan. The two professors know well. Maybe you were going several places of this kind of exhibition halls.
Yes.
And in some cases, the more than 20 companies showing the full-size model to attract the customers. And if customers knock on the door of the model house, okay, welcome to us. And maybe about 60 or 70% of such kind of those who knock on the door can be a customer of them. So it is, how to say, the collection function of the production scale of large firms. And in such a case, actually, to be honest with you, the building technology itself has no relationship to the business. Of course, offsite building system with Sexy House, Sexy Chemical Industry, Daiwa House, Toyota Home, Panasonic Home, is we can find. But in other hands, some Sumitomo Forest Industry or other, how to say, rather conventional wooden post and beam construction method is, how to say, at the same time they are showing the model house. And they are doing a big business with not so advanced building technology. from the point of view of the offsite construction or not. But anyway, the collecting customers, how to collect the volume of the customer is the key issue. And maybe 20 years ago, until 20 years ago, it was done only by large companies which could have their own sales offices and sales persons all over the world, all over Japan. But nowadays, there's some kind of, how to say, functional the distribution. Small business, but many small business can be a big factory and so on, so on. So the situation is becoming more complicated nowadays in Japan, I think.
That's interesting. One thing we were very impressed by when visiting Japan, Ivan and I, is the focus on the customer experience, both in the handling of the architects from these companies that go and meet with the client, customer,
yes,
and give them a custom experience or a perceived custom experience, and then these customers can come to the factory, and there is also an experience for them at the factory. They can watch their home being built. There's a sort of security and trust that's built about the quality of the home, right? That's something I think we can learn a lot from in the United States and Canada. We don't do that very well with regards to housing, so it's a really good one. Next question for you is, a lot of the companies that Ivan and I have seen in Japan seemingly succeed because of a unique permitting or permissions process for their construction system. Can you explain the Building Standards Act a little bit more and what it means?
Yeah, yes, of course. As I mentioned before, the Building Standards Act in Japan, how to say, imagined only existing building construction methods in around 1960. But in around 1970, Ministry of Construction, namely our government, would like to push the industrialization and push those prefabricated housing suppliers and manufacturers, and also prefabricated building system. So they recognized, of course, the big obstacle is such kind of the process of the Building Standards Act. Before that, each plan has to have a special permission. If the Mr. A's house is Mr. A's house, B's house, then every time they need to go to Minister of Construction, not the Ministry, Minister of Construction to allow me the special permission. Then the special committee composed of the big professors of structure engineers and so on are coming to examine this one house. It is, how to say, impossible. So in around 1970, 73 or something, Ministry of Construction, how to say, established a kind of system permission, what we call. So the prefabricated manufacturers, suppliers and manufacturers will set the rule, structural, from the point of view of structure engineering, not only the, how to say, structure engineering, but also the fireproofness and so on. And they established the rule, and within the rule, they can design freely. Such kind of rule, they had to show the special committee under Minister of Construction in around 1973. It is what we call the building system approval system.
Mhm.
And of course, the name and the system itself has changed a little. But basically, still now, such kind of off-site construction or prefabricated housing manufacturers, suppliers and manufacturers have to get such kind of permission. Then they can freely plan for customized housing within their own rule. It's a kind of compromise system,
Mhm.
and it was the it had the meaning of encouragement of systematization from the Ministry of Construction side.
Yeah, so when you say compromise, you also mean a compromise. The ministry wanted to see more standardization. The companies hadn't standardized, but then the carrot, let's say, was if you will be able to reach customers more easily if you standardize further. We will be able to inspect you more easily if you standardize further, and that's the kind of compromise, which is a great. That's a great way to think of it. As it's very clear.
And it is very Japanese. The unique condition is that we had conventional wooden housing, and in case of them, know how to say the special treatment. It is very simple way and easy way to get approval from local authority. And such kind of the conventional wooden housing is also based on the custom made.
Mhm. Mhm.
So compared with this world, the offsite construction has how to say a kind of demerit.
Mhm.
So how to make their business smoother, this kind of special treatment should be introduced
Mhm.
as one thing.
Mhm. Great. Okay. Maybe shifting focus a little bit. The industry is very specific to Japanese culture, and it's developed in a very particular way. But we've seen companies like Sekisui Heim try to export the product through setting up a factory in Thailand, and recently Sekisui House set up tried to bring their Shawood line to the U.S. through the acquisition of a U.S. manufacturer. So do you see? And there's been, and you yourself have shown us other examples from earlier periods in the 80s. There was an attempt in Germany and so on. Do you see that? Do you see the Japanese companies maybe trying to bring some of these processes or products outside of Japan, or in the future? Is that something that's happening?
Yeah. Yes, I basically approve your, how to say, the opinion about the overseas activities of the Japanese prefabricated housing makers, because one very serious condition for them is the shrinkage of the new building market in domestic market. And then the, how to say, enlargement field for their own business is one thing, is the renovation or such kind of something about existing building or existing houses in Japan. That's one thing. And another very important field is overseas activities. And it depends on the company, but in case of, you mentioned sexy chemical industry, they established a factory, almost a similar factory as Japan in Thailand. And they are doing modular system. Is very similar to their product in Japan. That's one typical way. So they are going to sell their own product, which they used to sell and produce in domestic market, is one thing. But another typical the strategy of overseas activity is, for example, taking an example of Sumitomo forest industry. they are doing business not only in North America, but also some Asian countries.
Mhm.
But in Japan, domestic market, they are doing post and beam wooden construction. Is a conventional wooden, but some kind of advancement they have, advanced technology with post and beam. But in other countries, sometimes they are doing, how to say, American timber frame construction method or some others. So very localized. This is another enlargement of the business field to, how to say, to establish a new building company or to buy a company in other countries.
Mhm.
So in between this sexy Heim strategy and this typical Sumitomo forest industry, there are many strategies for overseas activities. Sexy house is going with Shoud. Shoud is domestic building system they are doing. But some maybe modification with them and to America. It's just the middle of this sexy chemical and Sumitomo forest industry. So we cannot see the, how to say, exact future way of them, but nowadays they are going not to developing countries, but developed country because of the income level. Their product is not so cheap. It's rather expensive in Japan.
Yeah.
So they're going to a richer market in advanced countries. It is their maybe actual strategy nowadays.
Makes sense.
Ivan and I were interested and noted, and this will be interesting for our audience, that although Japan started out initially with prefabrication as a strategy to potentially bring down cost, it has developed into an industry that promises quality for a slight increase in cost. So it's a premium product now as opposed to an affordable solution. So Professor Matsumura, we skipped one question I want to make sure we get to, and that is the question about standardization versus customization. And I think you prepared some slides from Sekisui Heim to explain that difference. Yeah.
Yes. Wait for a moment. Yes, in case of this kind of, this picture is from sexy chemical industry. As I mentioned before, sexy chemical industry is the top maker of modular housing system. And
Professor, may I please ask you to, can you make this full screen? Can you make it a little bit larger so we can see it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's nice information.
Yeah, it's good information. There we go.
It's okay?
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, it is one thing all of us should share the knowledge about the modular housing. Of course, the modular housing is very limited in the freedom of the floor layout because of this kind of boxes here, the blue boxes. The size of them very only some 10 variations or something like that because of the limitation of the transportation law on the road, the widths and lengths and so on and so on. And if the Mr. A or Mr. and Mrs. A would like to realize this kind of floor layout, they are doing this, how to say, the arrangement of the, from the some variation of boxes. And this is another one, the Mr. and Mrs. B would like to realize this kind of floor layout. But only with those blue typical boxes or modules, they cannot realize this floor layout. So they introduced more smaller size modules to here, the green one and the pink one. Is another is this one is, you know, this cut is following the, how to say, shape of the building regulation itself. So especially in the Tokyo or Osaka big city area, the land lot is very small and limited. So the shape of the house is limited, and they need to follow all the possible shape by the building regulation. Then you can, how to say, the biggest, the volume of the space. So they need to this kind of shape. It is specialized way. But if you cannot do that, you will lose this customer. So such kind of customers' preference and the very specific condition of the landlord of them or property is the very important issue. All prefabricated housing suppliers and manufacturers should follow this, and how to realize that they are making efforts every day, and how to realize the productivity also. It is one typical, how to say, the struggle in between the productivity and the customer's preference and the specific condition of each property. Yes.
And it seems from what we saw touring Sekisui Heim, from the perspective of the US and maybe Canada, that looks like a lot of different kinds of modules. Like in most US factories, we would see much less, much fewer. But maybe we'd like to hear your thoughts about it. It seems that the standardization process happens at the next scale, at the subassembly level. So while the modules there's a quite large variety of even standard modules, but what they're made of, the subassemblies of the modules, is highly standardized. Is that how the balance is reached between customer desire and the line, the production line? Is that the secret?
Yeah. So the today's audience should come to the factories of them. You can realize, yes, or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Great.
And we hope to make our way over there and visit again, Professor Matsumura. We hope to make it there to see you. Ivan, I was thinking maybe just a couple more questions. One about multifamily, if you would ask that one, and then go ahead.
I can even combine the wood and the material and the scale together. Yeah. So this is a fairly easy question, I think, to answer. But currently, the market in Japan is dominated by single family, or the offsite market. Sorry, single family and light gauge steel, right? But we see both wood and we see some multifamily. Do you see either multifamily and/or wood growing in the future, or do you see steel and single family continuing to dominate?
Yes, thank you. That's yes. One thing is, of course, I can approve completely to the opinion of enlargement their business field to the multifamily dwellings market.
Okay.
Especially they are very much interested in the, how to say, elderly people's housing or something like that, because in case of prefabricated houses manufacturers suppliers, they are not doing the business of owner-occupied housing, condominiums. Of course, the big company, so they are at one department, they are doing condominium business, but that is completely different from this offsite construction department.
Mm-hmm.
In this off-site construction department, they are doing rental housing
Right. Rental.
up to 4-story height or something like that. And this is one typical business. They can sell their product to one owner, one
Right.
landowner. It is a very simple business style. And based on that, they would like to enlarge that multi-family dwellings.
Rental
Then,
units.
yeah, condominium, it is a little bit difficult in this market in Japan. How to say, I don't know why, but reinforced concrete structure is a condominium or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Such kind of thought,
Yeah.
people's thought or habit in the market is existing.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, gradually, how to say, the new timber, for example, CLT or some new wooden structure is coming, steel structure is coming, but compared with reinforced concrete, cheaper one has never appeared in this multifamily condominium market. But rental market, they are maybe enlarge. Not only light gauge steel makers, but also some wooden maker. So the timber frame, the one typical name of the company is Mitsui Home, the American timber frame system company. And also the Sumitomo forest industry is wooden post and beam construction method. They will also come to the multifamily.
Professor Matsumura, a last question, final
Yes.
question, and that is about whenever we start talking about prefabrication and especially modular construction, volumetric unit-built construction, the idea comes about circular economy and the ability to reuse and design for disassembly and reuse down the road. I know that there are some ideas in Japan around this right now. And when Ivan and I were visiting, we saw an entire Sekisui Heim house be disassembled right in front of us and taken somewhere else. But I know this is not, it was reused. But I know this is not the norm. It's not usually done. And so maybe you could talk about, even though the system is designed to do that, why has that not caught on? And also, what about sort of future reuse market for modular construction? Because there's all this data that's available about how they are built. So now you can go and renew the kitchen or renew the bathroom. Why is this not done? Why is this not done as much as we would think it would be done today? If you could talk about that. Good.
Okay, it is just my opinion or my understanding, but as you mentioned, those modular systems like Sexy Heim can be reused in the unit of each modular. They can dismount them and transport to other site and so on, so on. But they say that it costs much. That's the actual condition today. But I think it depends on how to say, the customers or the market attitude for the environmental matter. The new younger generation, I don't know the real younger generation's feeling because I'm old enough to to know them. But anyway, if the customers tend to select more environmental friendly product or something like that, then the business persons will follow that. And possibility is here. We have. The modular system can disassemble and assemble again in other places. That's very, how to say, natural. of course, some technical difficulty will be should be overcome, but it is not so high obstacle or high barrier. The highest barrier is the customer's preference. Maybe today is still the customers would like to new product. As a used one, then cheaper, but actually it costs much. So if we can find a new customer will pay more than new product, that's used reused one. So I pay more than new product. That's only one, how to say, the imagination, but such kind of change of customers can happen in near future. Then the building system can follow. But the business company itself cannot, how to say, lead the market. It is very difficult. The market itself should go this way or that way. But the business person will just follow. That's my understanding or my opinion.
Professor Matsumura, do you have any closing comments or last words before we finish our call today?
Yeah, the audience is not from America, but from Europe and so on. Or
In America, it's international.
Okay, okay, international. Okay, the originally we will welcome you in May, but because of this COVID-19 problem, they postponed the visit to December. But I don't know now.
Yeah,
It is possible
maybe
whether
May
it is
again.
impossible or not. But anyway, the near future, today's story is just my understanding. The most important thing is your observation. Of course, some support. My story will be a kind of support for your understanding. But your understanding should be on the actual, how to say, the findings in Japan. So please come to Olympic Games next year. Okay,
Thank you so
very
much, Professor. Thank you for your time and your expertise.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you again in Japan. So thank you so much.
Yes, yes, of course. Looking forward.
Next summer, at least. Nothing else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Then
night.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, good night. Thank you. Bye.